Welcome to the Badass Soul Seeking Warrior podcast. I am your host, Annie M. Fonte. If you are looking to create a life that you love, you're in the right spot. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to have a chat with my guest today, Daniel Mangena. Daniel is an author of 4 books. He's a speaker and a coach. He's a singer-songwriter.
Oh, she's slipping in the secrets. She's slipping in the secrets.
I figured that out. He loves to travel. He's an avid reader. He lost 2 fortunes by the age of 24 and had a late diagnosis of Asperger's disease at the age of 27. We are going to see if we can't get our way through a lot of that today. So Dan, thanks for carving out some time and welcome.
And thanks for making the time available for me to come into. This is exciting. Yeah.
So I'm going to jump right in here. You've built a brand around manifestation and the true power of what can be created with it. So my question is, why and how did you create this brand and how does it work?
Can I tell you a secret?
Yes.
Seeing as you found some more of my secrets, which I'm going to get to the bottom of how you work that out. I had zero intention of building a brand around anything. I had zero intention of actually sharing anything with anyone. I didn't come into even this work to make money. In fact, when I first came into it, I was content with the fact that I was going to be a poor teacher forever, but I just was excited about getting the opportunity to kind of share this with people. I had my Jonah and the Whale situation. I think Jonah and the Whale really was back in 2017. I'd been doing the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza for about, a year, I think by then, maybe a year and a half. And as I'd been entering into more community with people that were more spiritual, because up until then, I was doing all of my work more in isolation. The last time I'd been in community around this kind of content was in my late teens, early 20s when I was with my first teacher. And after that, I was kind of more rolling dolo with maybe the odd pair up. But being in community again and having those mirrors saying, oh, why don't you do this? Oh, why don't you do this? And people hearing more about my story. Oh, you should be sharing that and blah, 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 blah. And so when that started to get louder and I was like, oh, okay, I will make that transition after I've put some money aside, because I kind of liked having several Rolex watches, a £1 million house and traveling first class, because I built my life up from the doldrums of the mess of like 2008, 2009. I built it up. And I liked everything being predictably the same. I liked knowing that everything was comfortable and safe. I liked my life the way it was. I didn't want to change it. But then when this call started to get louder and I said, okay, I'll put some money aside and then I'll be able to maintain my lifestyle and then I can share, maybe I'll write a book. I've been working on the book Stepping Beyond Intention since 2010. 2009, actually, I started writing that book. And so I was like, oh, yeah, I'll do the book. I had registered to do it with Dan because I'd intended to do a business podcast, but I was like, okay, maybe I'll do a motivational, sort of inspirational podcast. I'll do some speaking. There's my contribution, hands off. And then everything started to go wrong with my business. My partners decided to gut the business and run off and start another business. So I lost it basically. And then I kind of regrouped, and then that started to get really icky and hard. And then it hit me that what was actually going on was that I was saying that I don't trust God, I don't trust the universe to look after me if I just step out and do this work. And so I committed to winding things down. Then the 13th of February 2018, I was on a walking meditation, and I had the vision of what my life would look like if I just committed fully to this work. And so I ended up that day closing down the website, completely walking away from my business. I had a couple $100,000, maybe tucked away, something like that. The house got packed up and put in my brother's garage. I took a suitcase, a backpack and a suit carrier, and I went off to teach Beyond Intention to the world. And that's where this journey started.
Wow, that's a great story. And I forgot to mention in the intro that you do have your own podcast. You do it with bands. So
Yeah.
yes, we'll talk about that in a bit too. Okay, so
Mhm.
I'm curious, given that you've built this brand, this
Mhm.
manifestation brand, what is your definition of manifestation?
Do you know what the thing is? I think manifestation has become sexified so
Hmm.
that people can sell more courses for 997 on
Right.
Instagram.
Yeah, I agree.
Manifestation is what we all do. We all do it. I believe that manifestation is a fancy word that came out after people saw marketing opportunities on the back of The Secret and tried to make something of what we do innately anyway. When I talk about manifestation, I'm plugging into that collective agreement about this word so that I can actually pull people back from the nonsensical ideas and just bring them back to just consciously choosing what we create, because we're always creating. For
So
me,
it's kind of
manifestation.
like woo-woo in a way, woo-woo versus
Mm.
intention.
Yeah, for me, when people ask me, what makes you different from other people? Well, for me, it's that the woo has its place,
Hmm.
but the woo is part of an overall deliberate process of actually choosing what we experience, which isn't just meditating. That's why my upcoming book is called Stop Meditating. It's not just your yoga or how many ayahuascas you've been or who your shaman is and what their lineage was. You know what I'm talking
Right.
about. It's that in whatever way works for you, having an actual direct impact on your emotional state and your ability to hold the frequency vibrationally of what you want to create. And then having a mindset that allows you to actually receive and follow through on that vibrational flow into manifestation. So a belief system that supports it. And then a daily showing up that matches those things so that you can actually embody it. Because one of the things I find that people lose sight of is that for me to experience something in physical reality, I need to move through time and space, embodying it in physical reality. And that's why I think a lot of people don't get what they're actually going to create.
Right. So let's dive into this a little bit. What's the difference between your method and The Secret?
The Secret is not a method.
Okay.
The Secret
However,
is
there's a
not a
lot of
method.
folks out there that put a lot of weight into that.
Because
So
they're selling a lot of courses on Instagram and Facebook.
exactly. Right. That's why I want to, I kind of, put these things where they appropriately
Where they belong. I mean, I got to meet Richard, who actually published the book about The Secret. I got to meet him at an event. Really, really cool guy. I've got to meet a couple of people that were in The Secret, and I've got to be on summits and stuff where, some of the Secret people have been and blah, blah, blah. But The Secret really was an opportunity for us to see that there is something more magical about life. But what I feel happened is people got caught up in the magic and forgot about life.
Mm-hmm.
So when I teach people beyond intention, for example, I'm giving them a 4-step model that they can use to choose how they show up. But that choice has to be directed into what I'm doing. Yes, because I have to embody it if I want to experience it. What I'm thinking, because my thought quality, my beliefs are actually the gatekeeper to my experience, and where I'm at vibrationally, what's my emotional state, which is the first indicator, and also the way that we can direct our vibrational flow. Like, are all of these things pointing to what I'm creating? And is that creation happening against the backdrop of my unconscious programs? Me habitually just sort of churning out what I've been pre-programmed with?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I actually sitting in the driver's seat and choosing what's showing up in my life?
Got it. So can you pick a simple example that we could walk through?
Yeah, let's walk through. So, I mean, what do you want to do? Do you want to do love? Do you want to do relationship? Do you want to do money? Do you want to do what works for you?
Well, let's do money, because in a few minutes I want to talk about your most recent book, not the meditation, don't meditate or stop
Yeah.
meditating, but your money talk book. So
Yeah.
let's do a money
Okay,
process.
let's do money, because money is one thing a lot of people are charged
Yeah.
about.
If
And
only I could win the lottery, things would be okay.
and one thing is that a lot of people run away from the money story. They start to create these narratives around it. Oh, money's the root of all evil, or I don't need money. I've got my practices.
Right.
Cool. Thumbs up, mate. So let's look at, first and foremost, the program that we're running on is evident in what our financial state is most of the time. I always like to say the mind doesn't lose and the environment doesn't lie. So our regular place is the perfect indicator as to what our stories are about money. Your glass ceiling, your comfort levels, what your edges are, I talk about a concept I call your hard edge, which is the most you've ever had at any one time. Most people don't even have a conscious relationship to that. I'll never forget the story of a woman who came to me saying, I'm broke, what am I going to do? She had like 400 grand in her 401k. It's like, dude, just reallocate that and make some money. Now she's financially free. But she didn't know that even though she had this money, well, people who have got equity in their home and they don't realize actually you've got more in assets than you do in liabilities, you're not broke, right? So we've got these stories that we hold, and that becomes the script that we're running on. That script operates unconsciously, or we can disrupt it with intentionality. So the first step is having a conscious relationship to what's going on, and then does this script serve how I want to live, or does it need to be shifted? In which case I need to create an intention. So the first thing there is I'm setting an intention. Once I have an intention, I need to understand, what does this intention feel like? Why do I need to understand that? Because the first point of contact that we have with vibration or frequency, which is measurable, it's not sexy. You don't need to do another course to understand your vibration. Just how do you feel? Okay, that's your vibration.
Right.
So the version of me that is living this intention, what do they feel like? Then I've got the GPS coordinates to me having that experience. So it's understanding what emotions are related to that experience.
For example, like freedom and ease and
relief,
comfort
play, relaxation. When I understand that, and I suggest you don't need more than 3 to 5 feelings. You don't need to write a whole journal entry on it. I suggest brainstorming, spending some time journaling on it, and just pulling out 3 to 5, just so you can reel them off really easily. Right? Now you've got the GPS coordinates to the experience. So long as you're feeling those emotions, your vibrational frequency is going to be of that intention. So it could be, hey, financial freedom, which for someone might be $4,000 a month of passive income, for example. So that's my intention. That for me feels like play, freedom, and ease. Now that I understand the vibrational flow, I can apply beyond intention to consciously choose to be in that vibrational flow on a more regular basis. So that's sprinkling my day with inputs that support it. It's coloring my life, curating my life so that it no longer has things that pull me out of that vibrational flow. It
so
also
what's
means
sprinkling? Give us a sprinkling example.
So what are you listening to? What podcasts are they listening to you, Annie? Or are they listening to angry, poor poverty stuff and people saying that the world's coming to an end?
Right.
What movies, what TV shows are you watching? Because they're imprinting what's going on with you and it's going to impact your vibrational flow. What books are you reading? So changing your inputs, curating your inputs to actually include things that lead to me being triggered to feel the positive emotions that I want, the ones that actually connect to what I want.
So you're creating new beliefs and a new narrative around a new story.
A new story. So we're going to get to the story part specifically, but for now we're just curating the environment to support what I want, having a conscious relationship to it, rather than it running out and doing whatever it wants, which is going to be the unconscious programs that I was running on before I set this intention.
Okay.
So now my vibrational flow is open. The landscape is clear for me to build what I want on it. And that's when I start to consciously look at my stories. So what comes up? I could be financially free if it wasn't for this. Well, you've got blame. Let's look at taking personal responsibility. Step 1 of beyond intention. There's a recession. Well, let's start looking at meeting that narrative with stories of people who have succeeded in these types of situations to provide evidence for my mind of the new narrative that I want. I'm black, I'm white, I'm tall, I'm short, I'm a man, I'm not, I'm non-binary, people don't respect transgender. It's looking for evidence to actually support my narrative that I want and identifying those false beliefs. And that may mean dealing with some trauma, go and doing some healing. Maybe then you go and see a shaman, right? It could mean taking time out to maybe work on your unconscious mind, maybe seeing someone that's got skills with NLP or timeline therapy, something that allows you to go in and find the root cause to those actual challenges. And again, this is a perfect opportunity to come back to this thing of people not recognizing that there's going to be work involved. This isn't, popcorn from the microwave. There's going to be work. And a lot of people I found in my experience over the last kind of 20 years and have been in this kind of information, they're not ready to do the work, and that's why they don't get any result. And if they were actually prepared to just put some work in, then they'd have a change.
Yeah, and it feels like in those situations that people insist on arguing for their limitations so they can be right.
100%.
And that usually doesn't work out too well.
It doesn't work out. And I've got a controversial video that I did on Facebook about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, called Stop Lying. And it really riled people up, because what I was saying in that video is, maybe you're actually okay with where you are. Maybe you like being able to complain about your husband or your wife, and that's why it's there.
Yep.
Right?
Well, they get comfortable with it, and it's what they know.
Part of the identity, it becomes part of the identity, and then we're hardwired into it. And some people aren't ready to do the level of work that's demanded in order to break free of the force of the identity that you're holding. And if that's where you are, own it and be okay with it. Like, stop judging yourself against other people's stories about what you should be. One of the things I found when I launched my Micro to Millions program, which is the program that we teach people like step by step how to create abundance. And initially it was like, hey, like, I'm going to make you a millionaire. It's like, yeah, I'm going to be a millionaire. And then people were like, I don't really want to be a millionaire. I'm financially free now. I'm going to buy. I just wanted to top up the college fund for the kids. Like, I never thought I'd have 100,000 in the bank, but I've got it now. I don't really care about being a millionaire. Hey, I remember there's this one woman. It was one of the funniest stories, because she was one of the she was trailblazing, getting it in. And then she didn't even get that far. She got like 10 grand or something like that. And she's like, do you know what, Dan? I actually found a boat that's like 6 grand. It's going to cost me X, Y, Z to live in this boat. I've got a couple of passive income streams now, thanks to this work. I'm good. It feels like quitting, but I don't feel like I'm quitting. Like, what's going on here? I was like, no, like, you've found your happy place. Have at it. Go and live on your boat. And she's perfectly happy doing some painting and doing some other things and living on her boat. And without the judgment and without the other stuff, she's just able to just be happy with where she's at.
Yeah, and I think your process of being very intentional about things and creating new beliefs and new stories and attach the emotion to those new beliefs is so important, because, you know, you've met probably more than I have people in the world that they'll say, when I get the car, or I get the next job, or the raise, or I get the new house or whatnot. And so then they get the car, they get the house, they get the wife they want, they get the 2.5 kids they want, they get the raise, they get all those things. And they're still miserable because they haven't done that work you're talking about. It truly is. And I know this is an old adage, but it is truly an inside job, right?
It is an inside job. And you know, when you start to bring intentionality and bring awareness to what the programs are, then you can actually see what's your stuff and what's not your stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you can start to see what's your desire, or what's the desire that's just been sort of eerily sitting there because other people told you that's what you're supposed to be doing. And once you're free of that, you're free to actually start creating life on your terms. Yeah. And then you need a lot less. And this is one of the things when people come to us for financial freedom, we find that once they are free of other people's stories, they need so much less even to be financially free. You don't want to live in that house. You actually just want a little tiny house in the forest. Yeah. You don't need 20 grand a month. You'd be happy with 1,500. But you're now able to actually have that freedom because you're not living on other people's stories, you're living on your own. But that requires awareness, and it does require some intentionality and readiness to actually step in and face down our addiction to living up to other people's ideals instead of our own.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's important to get really clear about what our definition of wealth is. And I think there's a lot of different varieties of wealth. There's physical wealth, there's emotional and spiritual wealth, there's contribution wealth, there's time wealth, there's a lot of different kinds of wealth, and really financial wealth comes at the very bottom of that. Because if we don't have the other varieties of wealth and an appreciation for it, what good's the money going to do you?
So for me, I really focus on having people look at money not so much as even part of that wealth, but as a tool that actually allows us to get the real wealth. Yeah. You know, people come into Micro to Millions and they get really confused as to why most of the conversations aren't even about money. Right. Because money is just a tool. Yeah. Like, I have them create their ideal life and understand that money is just a tool to get the ideal life. The emotions and the daily experience that we have living the life that we want. That's where the magic is. Money is just a tool that allows us to do that. But because it is the most commonly used form of exchange, it's not something that we can run away from.
Yes.
People want to talk about the new earth and the new age and the new systems and constructs. They're probably not going to happen in our lifetime. And even if they are, you need to be able to pay the bills in the meantime, and those bills are paid with money. So quit running away from this exchange. Quit running away from the current exchange, and develop a mastery with what's in your experience now, and then you'll be better suited to actually deal with what's to come anyway.
Right, exactly. Now, tell me, is this a course you currently teach people?
It's
is
a
it
course that we
online?
currently
Is
teach.
it in
Yeah,
person?
it's online. It's online. Micro to Millions has got a few different levels. We've got like an entry level that we literally just released last week. That's like $500 for people to get in, deal with those core money stories, and it gets you to like what we call the 5-figure club. So it will give you everything that you need to get beyond debt, for example, a lack of financial management, not even having income streams. It takes you through how to do that. The next level is Micro to Millions 2.0, which can take you all the way to $1 million or more if you want. It's up to you where you want to go, and it's step by step, covering the emotional resonance, how to develop that at each stage, the mindset and beliefs, but also giving you strategies when you're operating at different levels of wealth and abundance of what you can actually do. And we show you how to attach that base to your strengths, where you find the most flow. It's not a cookie cutter approach at all. It's very much understanding yourself, how you dance most beautifully and flow with the most ease with money, and then teach you how to actually identify paths to creating wealth based on that.
Got it. And this is on your website as far as a selection of the resources you offer.
Yes, they can get those on the website, or they can, if they want specific information, they can always contact us and say, hey, like, I'd love to know about 2.0. We've actually got, I'm not sure when you're going to be going live, but we've actually got a 4-day event where we're showcasing Micro to Millions with interactive coaching and going through the concepts that we teach in it at the back end of May, like the 17th of May, I believe, that we're doing that event. It's a 4-day event, completely free. So people can get information about that definitely on the website as well.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes for all you out there listening, that you'll have access to these resources that Dan's talking about. Let's talk about your most recent book, Money Talk. Give us an overview of it, and why did you write it?
You mean the money game? Money game?
I'm sorry, Money Game.
We talk about money in the money game. So going back to 2018, so I was on this journey, you know, I dumped everything and I went off, and I actually did a surrender experiment. Michael Singer's experiment. I did it about 3 months in. And I was actually talking to my wife about this the other day. Like I wouldn't know where I was going to be going. I would just let the universe guide me on where I'm going to teach my work, how I'm going to get there. I'm talking like, I would literally, I remember, never forget this, one of the funniest ones. I showed up in Northern California. I stayed one night at 1440 Monteversity, and I always wanted to see what it was like up there. I hung out there for a night and meditated amongst the trees, which was beautiful. The next morning I went to teach a workshop, and I had no idea where I was going to be sleeping that night. I had my backpack, my suit, carrying my suitcase, and I knew I was going to teach the workshop, and we were going to see what was going to happen, and everything just clicked into place. All I knew is that the following Friday, I had to be in Sonoma, up in Sonoma County, to stay with some friends. They were going to take me wine touring and blah, blah, blah. So I had no idea. All I knew is that between now and then, this is where I had to be. And as I went on this journey, coming to the end of it, one of my friends, a great mentor of mine, excellent businessman, actually said, hey, if you had more abundance, you could actually do more with sharing your work with people. And that's when I actually decided to make some money. But up until that time, I'd literally just been saying, oh, I need to get here. Okay, I'd set the intention, I'd write it down, I'd get into a really great place, and the resources would just show up. Someone would say, hey, we want you to come and speak here. Are you anywhere near here? We'll send you a plane ticket, or we'll send you a train ticket. Like, hey, we haven't got that much, but we'd love to send you a bus ticket and give you a hot meal every day and a place to sleep for you to come and teach your work here. And that's what actually happened. And then around coming to the end of that, I sat down and I said, is there something scientific to this? Can this be replicated? Is there something systematic that can be pulled out of what I'm doing? Or am I just randomly going around and doing stuff? And so I sat down and I experimented with an actual process that now has become the money game. And I did that for September, October, November, December, for 5 months. I was testing it out and I got it down to rhythm. And I did a mastermind in New York in January. And I taught it for the first time to people. I was like, hey guys, here's this thing. Try it out and see what happens. And it worked for other people too. I was like, oh, I'm not making this up. This is real. So then 6 months later, I said, okay, I taught it in a small enclosed area. I'm going to do a challenge around it. I'm going to put it out into the world And we had a record of £27,000 manifested in 2 days. But here's the thing, the intention was only to get 10.
Got it.
And the average was 1,500. So I did another one, and then we had a new record of 75,000 Australian dollars in 2 days. And I was like, okay, so there's something to this. I said, well, I want to get this into more people's hands. So I sat down, I did a workshop so I could get the content and the ideas really laid out, called how, you know, making the money game work. And then we wrote a book. And I outlined the steps, how to play the game, how it works, why it works, and different applications, how to apply it to your career, how to apply it to relationship, how to apply it to your business. It's really easy to read book, really short book. You can get in and out of it really quickly. And we put that out so that people can actually apply it in their lives.
So I think it's in your book, you talk about how we can be harmonious money magnets.
Yes.
So what does this mean and how does that work?
So being a harmonious money magnet really comes down to what we've been speaking about in terms of the parts of us that need to click into place to be in alignment with anything that we intend. Whether it's a loving relationship, finding our purpose, having more happiness, joy, whatever it is, peace on earth. For us to experience those things, we need to be aligned in our program needs to be disrupted to choose it instead of whatever our unconscious program is. Our emotional state needs to reflect a vibrational flow. Our belief systems need to say that it's possible. And then our actions, our behaviors, our choices need to be receptive of it. So being a harmonious money magnet is all about bringing those in. I've got a video on my website, dreamingdan.com/HMM, harmonious money magnet, HMM. It's about 40 minutes and I really break this down in more detail how each level works. But ultimately, no matter what it is that you want to create, those things, generally speaking, have to be in place. And if something's not working for you, I found that one of those pieces is out of place. Either your actions and behaviors don't align with it, you don't believe it's possible at an unconscious level, so that needs to be brought in to heal, or your emotional state is disruptive of you actually being in flow with that thing.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. Now let's swing, we're going to kind of swing back around here.
Yeah, no worries, your party.
Let's talk about some of the challenges you've experienced in your own
Yes.
life and how you overcame them, because you've had a few.
I've had a few knocks, yeah. So, I mean, first and foremost, my very first fortune, so lost 2 fortunes, this is shared by the age of 24. First time, started a business when I was 19, completely accidentally broke the law and ended up everything getting confiscated. Then I built up another fortune, and then everyone that I trusted to keep the money basically ran off of it. And then my accidental law breaking that happened, aka putting one word wrong in my paperwork, putting investment instead of loan on my paperwork, meant I'd run an illegal investment business and ended up going to jail, basically trying to help people create abundance in their life, ended up going to jail. So I had to deal with the shame. I had to deal with rebuilding my life. I've had to deal with a criminal record, obviously, for the past, what year is it now?
2021 now.
2021. For the last 10 years, I've had to deal with living life with a criminal record, which has its challenges.
Sure.
My diagnosis of Asperger's was actually a gift. I'm not going to say that was a challenge, but it overcame, for me, having that diagnosis, overcame the challenge of being autistic and not even realizing it for 27 years. And that does come up now as a challenge, but, you know, I tend to focus on the superpower aspect of it now. But, you know, all of these things, and this is one of the reasons why that experience on the 13th of February was so powerful for me, because what I actually realized on that day was that experience that I felt of envisioning what my life would look like if I shared how I had rebuilt my life could only have happened if I had rebuilt my life. And that could only have happened if everything had happened.
Right.
And I realized that up until that time, I've been grateful that I learned to appreciate my family more. I am a much nicer human being as a result of the humility of all of those experiences. I've actually learned to not only accept help, but seek it out and seek counsel. But I put some stuff under the carpet. I was like, yeah, but that stuff I'm not so grateful for. But it wasn't like, I wasn't consciously saying, oh, thanks God for that. The other stuff you can keep. It was, I just focused so much on the nice, easy stuff that I hadn't looked at the hard stuff. But that day I saw and felt gratitude for the entire experience.
Sure.
All of it was encapsulated. There was no, I will leave that one out. That one can go in the, in the subtext. I was grateful for all of it. Do some of these challenges still come up from time to time? Yes. Do people still judge, oh, you're an ex-convict? Yeah, I get it sometimes. But the payoff of standing in my truth, the payoff of getting to say to people, I came from all of this, and this is what I'm able to do with this same thing that I want to share with you, gives me a different level of experience that I can share with people and gives me another point of gratitude. And I found generally that those who care don't matter, and those who matter don't care. It's been a great filter for the people that I have in my life, friends, relationships, family members. I tend to see by how people treat me against my ability to just share what my story's been, to be very indicative of whether I even want them in my life. Anyway. So it's been a blessing, even though I often laugh and say, yeah, but God, I could have done with an easier way of accessing these blessings.
Yeah, but it got you where you are today. And so I agree with what you're saying wholeheartedly. One of the tenets of the coursework that I teach other people is to view every experience as a gift. Even if you're in it and it feels like the furthest thing from a gift you could possibly conjure up and even the most imaginative mind, you get enough distance from it and you can kind of look back on it. Things really do happen for a reason if we allow ourselves to let that be. So I like what you've said about that. I'm curious, age 20, by the age of 20, you had built and lost a fortune by the age of 24. And then you said you went through some challenges in 08, 09 and business partners, even before you decided in 15 to do some of this work. But given the work you do around manifestation and vibration and, kind of at the end of the day, it's quantum physics, if you break it down to science, right? What was going on with you that those things were showing up in your life?
So I identified, as the flow funnel became an idea that became a lot clearer to me, I saw, for example, time number one, habits and behaviors. I didn't have enough life experience. I was 19 years old.
Yeah.
What is a 19-year-old with zero life experience doing running off with not taking any advice from anyone, believing that he knew everything and he didn't need any help?
Yep.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Yep.
And I think sometimes when we talk about quantum and spirituality, we lose the fact that in physical reality, there are things that should really be in place, right? And recipes for disaster are probably going to lead to disaster if they're cooked perfectly. And in an instance where you've got an arrogant 19-year-old know-it-all that's not been tested by life, who saw success really, really quickly, which even hardened his head to thinking that he didn't need anyone. So that even then when he lost everything, he still didn't think he needed anyone because he hadn't been tested enough to know that he needed other people. That's a recipe for disaster. It doesn't matter how much my belief in myself, like I said, it went beyond confidence and into arrogance. I had zero belief anywhere that I could fail.
Yeah.
None. The vibrational flow, I didn't have have enough experience to know what it felt like vibrationally to hold large sums of money. So yeah, it's like a lottery winner, right? That wins and loses. It's exactly the same thing. So I didn't have the vibrational flow and I didn't have the habits and behaviors. All I had was the belief, and that wasn't enough to keep it. And the second time, because I hadn't allowed the lesson in, the habits and actions and behaviors hadn't changed. They changed a little bit, and that I realized, okay, I need to be more. So I had lawyers that made sure everything was, but I didn't have experience with people. So the people that I trusted naively ended up being the source of, because the energy is always going to find its way to be expressed.
Right. Yeah.
I changed one thing, but I hadn't taken care of everything. So I was still just another lottery winner hitting the lotto again, just to lose it because I didn't have everything else in place. So a big part of rebuilding my life has been making sure very, very intentionally that every single one of those pieces are in place. I'm constantly keeping a check on what my unconscious patterns are, looking at my environment. I'm constantly checking my vibrational flow. I use a practice called check-in. So 4 to 5 times a day, I check where I'm at emotionally. The beginning of my day and the back end of my day, I check where I am emotionally to make sure that the landscape is available to what I want. My belief systems, I'm ruthless in the curating of my environment. Conversations that I'm having with people, conversations I'm having with myself, what I'm listening to, what I'm reading, where I take myself. I can be a little bit extreme with it sometimes and it can dip into fear, but then the check-ins bring me back. Oh, you did that because of fear. Okay, let me get back into love. And checking my habits and behaviors. I spent $172,000 on my personal development last year. That's coaches, mentors, guides, programs, learning. And I think I'm at 50 or 60 for this year already in April. So I make sure that I'm surrounded by people who have more experience, surrounded by people who have wisdom, surrounded by people who call me on my stuff to make sure that I'm not going off down a rabbit hole again and being an arrogant little twat. I do that to make sure that I am holding myself accountable and empowering myself to go and hit those heights that I continue to want to strive towards.
Yeah, I think that's so important. We have to invest in ourselves. And I like that you've mentioned, and I think it's particularly important for maybe some of the folks listening who are 19, 20, 24, that it's when you think you're the smartest guy or gal in the room, you're probably in the wrong room.
Yeah, probably or just wrong. It's one of the two.
Regardless of what your age is, you think you've got it all pulled together. It's probably, you're wrong. So I really appreciate the fact that you've expressed how important it is to invest in ourselves and continue on this growth path. Speaking of, let's talk about self-empowerment. How have you in the past, and what do you recommend to folks? How do you break through being stuck? Whether you're stuck in your thoughts about money, or you're stuck in a relationship you probably shouldn't be in, or you allow yourself to stay stuck in maybe a profession or a vocation that's not a good fit for you. How do you break out of the chains of that?
For me, when it's stuck states, it's beyond intention, plain and simple. Those 4 steps will get you through any stuck state because they don't leave space for the stuck state to remain. It's the long and short of it. So those 4 steps, quickly stated, are accept, clear, gratitude, and listen. And with your permission, I'll take you through what those steps are and how it applies to a stuck state. So first and foremost, accept is I'm the author and creator of my life.
Yeah.
So long as I'm blaming other people, places, and things for my stuck state, I'm not going to be able to get anywhere. But conversely, once I take full responsibility for my stuck state, nothing can stop me getting beyond it. It may be a little bit more challenging, it may be a bit tough, but nothing and no one has any power other than what we give it. Now, this stuck state may be sitting in an unconscious place, but that's still something that I have dominion over. We may want to attribute it to a past life or a parallel life. Well, go and do a regression then and go and take care of it. It may be a childhood trauma. Then you can do some healing and deal with it. It could be a soul contract. Well, then go and unwrap that contract, bro. Get into the white light and go and take care of it, right? There is no excuse. Well, there are excuses, but those excuses don't need to be the thing that holds us stuck. And accept is claiming the authority, the dominion, and the power to actually create our own life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you bet. You're singing my song, brother.
So then clear, step 2 is recognizing that once I've got that authority, once I've claimed that authority again, I can't do anything in a place that's not real. Yeah. And so long as my consciousness is either in the future, which can happen positively or negatively, overexcitement can pull you out into the future as much as anxiety, or in the past. And being lost in remember when conversations to the positive or the negative are just as disempowering in terms of our relationship to now. So step 2 is about actively cutting our ties to the future and the past and becoming present here in the now so that we can effect real change.
Yep.
Step 3, gratitude, is all about connecting to the expectation of what we want. One of the things that I learned on my journey in terms of what had worked and what hadn't worked, what had been the shortcoming on the journey to rebuilding my life, is understanding where expectation comes into the picture. Because life is a series of us stepping into our expectation. When we talk about the flow funnel, when we talk about intention, we're talking about programming in a new expectation, because everything that happens out here was set here as an expectation that we follow through with in terms of what we embodied. So if I start to consciously choose to embody a positive expectation, then I can allow it to come into me. And one of the most powerful ways to do that is gratitude. When I'm grateful for something in advance, I'm developing an embodied positive expectation for what I want. So that's why we practice gratitude in advance. and not afterwards. Afterwards, celebrate. What we do afterwards is we actually celebrate. Oh, that's shown up. We celebrate, we dance, we lift ourselves up, we pat ourselves on the back, but gratitude comes before. The fourth step, listen, is probably my favorite because it allows us to have compassion for ourselves and to remember that we are human. We are not going to be switched on all the time. We're not going to get it right every day. Sometimes we're going to be sad and down. Sometimes we're going to want to throw a pity party. Sometimes we're going to call our friends and bitch and complain about our husband or our wife or our business or our life or whatever. Stop forcing that down and suppressing it. Give it space to breathe. And then once you've let it out, move on healthily. So listen is checking, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? Am I still aligned with what I want? Is there something coming up that I need to address that's keeping me out of alignment with what I want? Do I need to slow down and pause? Do I need to speed up and take advantage of opportunities? But it's having that conscious relationship with ourselves from a place of loving compassion, recognizing our humanity and honoring it. And that's beyond intention.
Yeah, thanks for walking us through that, because I think it's so important. A lot of what I heard you say is, regardless of what's going on with us, is an important question I ask myself is, can I just be with this? Mm-hmm. No matter how good or bad it feels, can I just, number one, be aware that I'm feeling it? And like you say, accept it. Okay, it's just one of those days, Annie. Be with this. Don't try to push it away or make it not so, or make it bigger or smaller than it is. Just be with whatever it is. And I truly believe this is evolutionary. We're on this journey, and life will continue to present us with opportunities to embrace freedom, because life will present us with people, places, and things that will show us where we're stuck or we're not free. And it sounds like in those moments when that person and that situation arises or that thing comes in, that's when, okay, stop, I'm aware of it. I accept that the universe, for whatever reason, has brought this to me. I'm going to clear my energetic bonds around what's creating this for myself. I'm going to get grateful that it showed up, because this is another key to unlocking that constructed prison that I find myself in right now. And then, okay, you break loose of all that. You've kind of gotten that all sorted out. And then the celebration is really important. The listening and the celebration. So I really appreciate that. And that's a very, very, not so much easy, but it's a very clear-cut 4-step process that I can use, all of our listeners can use when they find themselves in these situations, for sure. Okay. I want to talk, for some of our listeners who may not have heard of this or not as aware of the Asperger's. Explain what that is, and how was it determined that you had this?
So the easiest way for me to explain Asperger's is an autistic person that can actually communicate with the outside world.
Yep.
So just when someone is autistic, there are varying degrees of autism, right up to the Rain Man who can speak a little bit, or someone who's completely nonverbal. A friend of mine's got a completely nonverbal son. Asperger's can be parallel in terms of how deeply autistic they are, but just the wiring that was missing that allowed outside communication exists with someone with Asperger's. That's the easiest way for me to explain it.
Okay.
So I've got pieces missing in terms of my wiring. So, for example, all social interaction is a very conscious process for me. So one of the things that actually led to it is I'd suffered from crippling social and general anxiety for years. That manifested in insomnia, depression, and other things. And it was actually dealing with a particular spate of insomnia that got really, really bad, where the doctor gave me the strongest sleeping pills he could give me, and they didn't work. He was legally not allowed to give me anymore, so he had to refer me to a therapist. And thank God the therapist he referred me to specialized in working with adults with autism. So when she was digging in, she realized, oh, hang on a minute, you're just on the spectrum. That's what's going on here. So she kind of didn't tell me what she was doing, but she was checking me over for about a month and then asked me to do a couple of tests. And those tests showed that I was actually up on the spectrum.
I appreciate you sharing that, because you've personally experienced this. And I know it might be valuable for whether it's people who are parents or they have nieces or nephews or young folks in their life, are there certain things that might indicate people have this so they don't get to 27 before they figure it out and they could maybe get some assistance earlier in their process?
Do you know what the funny thing is, Annie, is that I spent 27 years with nobody realizing they kind of just, all of the quirks. So I've got a spike. If you look at my neurodiverse neurotypical chart, I did another chart later on. I've got a spike in social. But the reason I've got a spike in social is because one of my gifts is anything systemized, I can learn it. That's why a lot of my work is systemized, because it's how I communicate most clearly. So I'd accidentally stumbled on some aspects of social dynamics. And so I had a spike. So I was basically accidentally hiding in camouflage in the mainstream world. So someone may have autistic traits and maybe be lower on the spectrum scale. So they say that 16 out of the 52 is, in the UK at least, this is the thing, that's like mainstream borderline. You're borderline into autism. I'm 37 on the score of 52. 42, you have to go to like a special school and you need like a bit more help regardless of where you're at. And I was 37 on the score. But having certain practices and having support can actually bring you down. So I don't appear as autistic as I actually am.
Wow.
Because of what my strengths were, I played to those. I went and studied social dynamics really deeply. I started learning about human interaction. It comes up in weird ways. So for example, here's a funny story. I lost an envelope with $1,000. It's somewhere in the house. I don't know where it is. We had a new maid starting. My wife decided she wants to move where we keep money in the house, and we split it up. And then I put mine somewhere, and I said to my wife, I said, I put it ... I'm not going to remember. Can you remember? And she forgot. Because the thing is that with my brain, if I break a pattern, my brain literally has no function of recall on that. So everything for me has to be in sort of the same place, or at least somewhere I'm going to bump into it. So for example, when I started here at the office, because I've got no system in place for where I keep my keys, I have to keep it somewhere visible at all time, or in a particular pocket of my bag. Otherwise I will not have any recollection at all of where I placed it. And that will manifest. I started to get anxious and oh my God, like da, 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 da. But then my coping strategies have meant that I deal with it a lot better. I used to be terrible. I couldn't go to like really busy shopping malls. I'd have really severe anxiety attacks, panic attacks. But over time, I've been able to sort of practice myself out of it. So long story short, there will be common traits such as how people engage in social settings, not being able to process things that don't have a system or don't have a purpose. Like if there's no intentionality, because an autistic mind sees everything in ones and zeros. It's not really a gray area. So these might be indicators, but they might not be enough. So if you've got something you think they might be, see if you can get them some support. Right. Because I know from personal experience, it's a gift to actually have your diagnosis, because then you can actually find out what your superpowers are and you can celebrate them and do something with them. What
have you discovered is your superpower?
Main one is learning anything systemized. Give me anything that's like in a step-by-step process and I will learn it with ease. I remember sounds. So to the point of singing, I've got a pitch perfect voice because I can replicate a sound.
Wow.
Basically. I can remember sequences of numbers, processing and churning information are like my mega superpowers. So
are you one of these guys that they wouldn't allow in Vegas?
No, I'm not. I can't do the Rain Man stuff. I can't do the Rain Man stuff. But if someone taught me card counting in a step-by-step fashion, I could learn it.
You could figure that. Wow, that's incredible. Wow. Well, thank you. I appreciate you being so open about that. Hopefully that's useful to folks out there who might feel some of that themselves, or might experience in a relationship or an interaction with another person, that maybe there's some things that could be done in those situations. So I'm curious, what are your best practices? What are your rituals and routines? Because it sounds like it's important for you to have some.
So for me, how I start my day, which has been interesting having a newborn, because I can't have as much structure at the moment. So I actually just was okay with, and again, having a diagnosis means that when I have the natural reaction to things, I can, oh, it's just that. So like not being able to get up at the same time every day because your sleep patterns is dictated by a small human was rough at first, but sort of I've fallen into that. But what I found for me personally is having micro things that I can have complete responsibility over has meant that all of that energy of needing some structure, I can put into something that I have like direct control over. So even in situations where other people, places and things have an input, then I can go ahead and just sort of create space for me to have that structure. So I don't have the same level of morning practice right now, but I do have like a micro practice that I can fit into 10 minutes that I can do at whatever time I get up, basically. So that's what I've been doing instead.
Good. I know little ones can be disruptive in all good way, in many good ways, but still it shakes things up a bit, doesn't it?
It does indeed. It does.
You've said that it's important to focus on what you want to be, not what you want to achieve. What do you mean by that?
Because we get who we are, not what we want. And when what we want doesn't come from who we are, then there's a disconnect that happens and it doesn't show up anyway. And when we focus on who we are, and we tie what we want with who we are, it tends to naturally unfold anyway. Reality wraps around how we feel because our vibrational flow sets the landscape. Mm-hmm. When that's done deliberately, it can have an impact on what we're thinking and therefore what we're doing and therefore what we experience. So when I focus on who I am as an emotional state, beliefs and actions and behaviors, then life unfolds naturally from there, I find.
Yeah, you've said it a couple times today, and I hope our listeners are really starting to see the common thread in this is that our vibration matters. Mm-hmm. We will attract things to us given our vibration, and we will also push things away from us given what our vibration is. And so that's really important to be aware of the state we find ourselves in. Mm-hmm. And there's certain practices people can do to go through a state change so they can mm-hmm. get out of that state quickly. And I think that those kinds of things are important. And I'm sure you've done a lot of work around that for yourself and with others.
Yeah, and I've spent time curating different tools that do that so that people can actually play with. There's some on the website. We've got a clearing toolkit that's available in the resources section of the website, which we keep updated with any new stuff that we find that does just that. It empowers people to create that shift.
Yeah. Okay, great. And I'll make sure we put the link to your website in the show notes so people can take advantage of all these great things that you're offering them. Couple more questions. I know that you and your siblings have created a foundation. Tell us a little bit about it and what's the mission and what can our audience learn from you about it?
So what we're doing is a lot of grassroots stuff. We're registered as limited by guarantee in the UK. We're not actually incorporated as a charity, so we don't get the charity write-offs at the moment. But what we do is we actually go in and support people that do grassroots projects. We're really concerned about children, the next generation, so anything to do with education, health and well-being. I sit on the board of a couple of charities and do a bit more hands-on work there. But the intention long-term for the Mangena Foundation is that we're actually financially supporting grassroots projects across the world that are actually looking at empowering the next generation of humans to actually make the world a better place. Great
mission. Good for you and your siblings for putting that together. I applaud you for that, for sure. What are the keys to developing a growth mindset, do you think?
Openness.
Happiness?
Happiness, yes, because it's a more elevated frequency. So we're going to actually be able to absorb more and expand more when we're in an expansive state.
And I'm curious, do you think happiness is a choice?
I do. It's an emotional state. Some choices are harder to make than others.
Yep.
If I'm going from deep depression, getting to happiness is going to be more challenging, but I can take the steps and actually get there.
Okay, good. I agree with that. I was just curious what you thought. All right. So what else? What else are the keys to developing the growth mindset?
Recognizing that we're human and we're not going to grow every day. There's going to be pauses. There's going to be winter, autumn, spring. It's seasonal. And I want to encourage people to remember that you've never even seen your own face. You've only seen a reflection of it. You've never seen your back. You've never seen the back of your knees. You may have seen a picture or reflection. So allow other people who can maybe see things that you can't see to support you in growing.
That is amazing. I've never thought about that before. We've never really seen our own face, only a reflection of it.
Yeah, a reflection or a
That
picture.
is
You've never
so
actually
cool.
seen it in detail.
Yeah, no kidding. That is,
Mm.
yeah, we see things in other people that they don't see in themselves. Fabulous. Okay. Anything else?
We'll just have fun. We're not getting out of this life thing alive anyway, so don't
Give
take it so
yourself grace.
seriously.
Don't take it so seriously, right?
Yeah, you're not getting out of it alive.
Well, this has been great. Before we go, was there a question that would have been good for me to ask you, but I just didn't know enough to ask it, that we should share with our folks here today?
We covered some pretty good ground.
Okay. I think so.
Some pretty good
I
ground.
really do.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I really
fun.
appreciate you spending some time with us today. I will, as I said, for those of you listening, and as you share this with others, I will put the links to Dan's podcast and his website in the show notes so you can take advantage of all that he has to offer. This will be out in time to inform them about the May date that you're having the
Brilliant.
live. So people, if they're interested in taking advantage of that, they'll certainly be able to. And keep doing what you're doing. I really appreciate the time and all the value that you shared with us today.
No, this has been a pleasure. I'm really excited. I just want to encourage everyone, please invest in yourself, yes, but push your edge, not your buttons. Don't try to take on so much that you actually end up short-circuiting yourself. Take it a day at a time. A little bit done on a regular basis will get you a lot further than trying to take everything on at once.
Yeah, like I've always said, Dan, you eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Exactly.
Not
if you
the
like
whole
elephants.
elephant.
If you like elephants.
All right.
If you're vegan,
Thanks
you
so
can have
much.
the whole plant, a leaf
Yeah.
at a time. So.
Exactly. All right. You take care. We'll talk real
Thank you
soon.
so much.
All right.